Caregivers, have you ever felt like nothing? I mean, nothing is going right? Well, cheer up and welcome to Dave the Caregiver's Caregiver radio program, where you'll learn how to avoid that dreaded thing called caregiver burnout and how to survive the grief process. You know, with roughly 100 million caregivers in the U.S. and Canada alone, that's about a third of the population. That means that everyone probably knows someone caring for a loved one. Join Dave and his guests now and every Wednesday at noon Pacific Time as they discuss avoiding caregiver burnout and surviving grief. So find a comfortable place to relax, kick up your feet, and prepare to feel better and to receive practical tips and tools that you can start using immediately to get you through today and every day so you can survive your tomorrows. But not just survive, but to live life fully and abundantly. Yes, you heard me right. That is a possible goal to achieve. And now, here's your host, Dave Nassani. Hey, from Los Angeles, a Big Ellie. Welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I am Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver, coming to you live globally through the famous Blog Talk Radio Network, as well as YouTube and iTunes and Podcast.com and Blueberry.com and Stitcher Radio, and of course our website, caregiverscaregiver.com. Since I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver, it's easy to remember, caregiverscaregiver.com. Yes, folks, I'm the guy who's going to help you through this very difficult journey called caregiving, and we're going to do our very best to help you avoid that dreaded thing called caregiver burnout. You hear about it every single week. You'd think that people would know how to stop it by now, but that's why we're here. We have many new listeners each and every day, and we do have an exciting show planned for you today, even though it wasn't planned very well because my guest couldn't make it, and so it's just me and my lovely co-host Adrienne Gruberg, founder of the very successful Caregiver Space with over 160,000 Facebook likes. And Adrienne is an amazing person, and she's on the East Coast, and you have to feel sorry for her today because she battled traffic in a taxi cab trying to go around Trump Tower, which is a nightmare, I'm told, because there's just way too much security trying to protect a guy who doesn't want to sleep in his own, or does want to sleep in his own bed in Manhattan instead of the White House in a few days. But maybe that'll change. So welcome to the show, Adrienne.
Thank you. Always happy to be here. You know that.
Yes, you're not only my co-host today, you are my guest. So we're just going to talk to each other. And we have many things we can talk about. And we're just going to talk about whatever we want to, whatever enters our mind. We're going to read our sites and see who's complaining about what and see if we can help them feel better and feel, you know, like things aren't as bad as you think they are. Well, by the way, if you're new to this show, and we get many new listeners every week, especially since we've gone video and people can actually look at us talk to each other instead of just staring at the ceiling, kind of like Howard Stern. I'm your host, Dave Nassani. As I said, this show is to caregivers of every kind. And the one thing we know about caregivers, many things, but one thing that we know is that they are, you know, caring and selfless and sacrificial, and they are very prone to burnout because they tend to put everyone else's needs above their own. And I would, if you would just listen to, you know, like Delta or Continental or American Airlines or United, they tell you in the unlikely event of an emergency, put your own oxygen mask on first before you helped your loved ones with their mask. And, you know, they know from experience, because I'm sure people black out because they're trying to help, you know, little Janie with her mask, and she should have put her mask on first. But I bet you anything that if 100 people were in a plane and this happened, you know, and the plane's going down and the masks fall down, I bet not one parent would be, you know, putting their mask on first. They'd be so desperately concerned about their loved one that they would be disobeying the rules. And, you know, caregivers are the same way. They don't follow the rules. They don't put their needs first. And they give and they give and they give until there's nothing left to give. And then they burn out and they become sicker than the one they're caring for. And, you know, that's not good. But we also do the the grief process. Anytime someone suffers a loss, they go through a grief process. Those Hillary supporters, they're grieving because they lost, and caregivers are exactly the same way. Did I just say that out loud? I'm sorry. I promised Adrienne I wouldn't get political. Anyway, it's hard to not get political. You just turn on the news and it's just all over the place. Anyway, the grief process, you can't, there's no escaping it. You got to go through it, and it takes time sometimes. You just don't get over grief overnight. You got to experience, sometimes, the denial. Have a day or two of denial, and another day or two of anger, and another day or two of trying to figure a way out. Is there any way out of this, and then unfortunately you got to go through that depression when you realize that there's no way out. But make that depression brief, because we don't want you to get suicidal on us. And there's hope. The sun will come up in the morning, as Annie sings. And then there's that wonderful thing called acceptance. So hang on for acceptance. It is on its way. I'm right, Adrienne, right?
Yes.
Of course I'm right. Yes. So many people just make it sound like things are so hopeless, and not only the political people, but caregivers too. I read some of the posts, and it's like, oh my gosh, thank God that my situation isn't as bad as hers. Sometimes they're all trying to top, well, who's got the worst story, and whose day was worse,
Right.
who had to clean, crap off the ceiling today, and how in the heck did it get up there anyway? Stuff
I don't
like
want to
that.
know how he got up there.
Yeah, that sounds like the restroom stories at my gas station. I got a million of them, and it's like you don't want to know. Well, welcome, Adrienne. As I said, we're just going to talk about what we want to talk about today. So how is, other than Trump Tower, how was your day today?
Well, I had my my annual physical, and I had better with a stress test and everything, and all of my results were better than last year. So a year older, and my tests are better. So
and why is that?
My endurance is better. My bloods are okay. Everything's fine.
And that's a great thing we can talk about, because how many caregivers do you know are not getting annual physicals at the very, very least? Talk about, well, when's the last time you've seen a doctor? Well, I can't remember. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I never go to see the doctor. Some people are afraid of what the doctor's going to say, but
more men are afraid than women.
Oh, I'm not going to touch that.
That's statistical.
Statistics. Well, why do you think that is? Without getting in trouble with the male species.
I don't know. It has to do with mortality.
That's right. Men live longer. There's a better word for that.
They might live longer if they discovered what was wrong with them before it became too much to deal with.
Maybe that's why men live less longer, because if they would just see the doctor as often as their counterpart did, maybe they might even live longer.
We also have women taking care of them.
Yes, that is true. My wife takes care of me, even though she's paralyzed on the right side and she can't speak, and she still cooks, she still cleans, she still, does the laundry.
So talk about attitude.
Yes. Sometimes it's easy for me and others to just, feel sorry for ourselves. Oh, poor me. Look at, my poor wife, things are not like they used to. She's not the woman I married and all of that stuff. But you know what? I am so blessed, because I hear stories about other spousal caregivers, and those are the worst stories, the spouses, because they know each other the best, and sometimes they say familiarity. What do they say about that?
In this case, it's contempt. Or content. Because men tend to want their wives or girlfriends to be the ones to take care of them because they're
Yeah.
more content. They're less afraid to be cared for by somebody that they know.
It's I
And
think
to
Freud
somebody,
called it the Oedipus complex, where we
yeah,
want a mother. We want our wife or
yes,
girlfriend to mother us, you know?
yeah, and chicken soup and all that.
For the soul.
Um, it's it is. Um, there are some men who thrive as caregivers, but not as many as women. And
Absolutely.
and I mean, I knew that if I ever got sick and Steve was still alive, he would not be my caregiver. He would provide a good caregiver and he would be there for me, but he couldn't do for me what I was doing for him. And he understood that, and I understood it, and I accepted it. It's not as though he wouldn't make sure I was well taken care of. It's just that he would know that he didn't have the capacity to do it. He didn't have
Yeah,
the patience. Patience
it's
is a big
true.
thing in caregiving.
It's true. I cannot do what my wife does as far as, what she does for me. And she's like a one-arm wallpaper hanger, so she's got definitely a disability, and yet she makes, I always say, us normal people look like whiners and complainers. So I think part of that is because she's a woman. Women are the only ones who have babies.
Yes. Mhm.
Someone said if men had to have babies, the human race would cease to exist.
Or evolve. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so many times, I'll talk to someone and they'll explain, how bad they have it. And I'll say, well, come on, think about it. What have you got to be grateful about? There must be something. It's, well, my spouse is still alive. I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful that she, is continent. That's the right word, right? That
Mhm.
she doesn't need a poop bag, whatever they call
Mhm.
those things,
Or a
or
diaper or
yeah, or the thing that you put up there.
colostomy bag? What?
Yes, that's the one. And some people, who have colonoscopies, where everything gets taken out, and that's what they got. They just got this bag
Well,
on
well,
their side all the time.
Steve actually did have a temporary colostomy.
Hmm.
Um, when when he was admitted to the hospital, they didn't know what it was, if it was appendicitis, if it was diverticulitis. As it turned out, it was a perforated diverticulum. So
Wow.
what that meant basically was that his stomach had blown open and all the waste was in his body. It was
Hmm.
really grotesque. So because he was broken, they needed to give him a temporary colostomy so it could heal, so that what they put back together would become functional again.
Hmm. My
But
son-in-law
while
had
it
to
was
go through
healing,
that.
yeah, it's a thing. And without without me, it would have been an ordeal that he just couldn't have coped with. And we worked together to make sure that we came up with a way of dealing with it that didn't curtail his way of life,
Yeah.
and his quality of life. He
Yeah.
was he was it was when he went into the hospital with that pain that they discovered that he had cancer. So they
Uh,
discovered the cancer very early. But it was very interesting dealing with a temporary colostomy while he was healing from his sternum to to under his belly button. It's a foot long scar.
yeah. So for all the people out there with care receivers and spouses who can go to the bathroom on their own and don't need all of that, they are very thankful.
They should be.
And yet, even for you, as bad as that was, there are things worse than that you are thankful for. You know, it's like the story. I met a man who had no shoes one time, and he met a man who didn't have any feet, and he met a man who didn't have any legs, and so on it goes. You know, there's a thing by a pastor, Charles Swindoll. He wrote something about attitude, and I just want to read it because it's brilliant, and I have it in my book too, The Caregiver's Caregiver. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. Wow. It's more important than the past. It's more important than education. It's more important than money. It's more important than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. I mean, that's a big statement.
That is a big statement.
It is more important than appearance, than giftedness or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, or a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. I think of Donald Trump. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes.
And we're the only ones that can fix that and work on it.
And I wish Congress would read that and understand that the inauguration is not about who won. It's about Americans. We are all Americans. We all have the love of our country. We're all going to celebrate the peaceful transfer of power, whether it's from Democrat to Republican or Republican to Democrat. There are not many places on earth where two opposing governments can peacefully hand the keys to the White House over and say, it's your turn. God bless you. And I think it's just, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say it's shameful what some people are turning this into just for their own.
Well, it's sad. It's just sad.
It's sad.
But we weren't going to get political, Dave.
No. You know, L.A. We had riots in L.A. Rodney King became famous. I don't know if you guys know who he is.
Sure.
Oh yeah, he's probably world famous.
Why can't we all just get along?
Yeah, I love those words. You know, the camera goes in his face. What do you think about it? And they're expecting him to say, well, you know, I disagree with that court. He just says, hey, man, you all doing this because of me? Why can't we all just get along? You know, great words. And I just wish we would. I was watching something on Netflix. It's called The 100. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's where we all destroyed the earth because, you know, mutual destruction. Everybody pushed their buttons and the whole earth was like destroyed. Yeah. And so 12 nations launched satellites to get a remnant of their population circling the earth for 100 years until radiation, you know.
And so they could come back to
so they're living up there, but they got problems and they're running out of oxygen and they don't know what to do. So they send down 100 of their children just as guinea pigs because they were committed to
canary in the coal mine.
Well, these kids, quote unquote, were like juvenile delinquents, and they were in trouble, and they were like detained in what would have been jail or juvenile detention. And so they decided, since they're the troublemakers, we're going to send them down to see if the earth is inhabitable because we're running out of air up here. And, you know, if it's not, then we're all going to die anyway. And if it is, well, great. And so they sent them all down, and it turns out that there are little groups of people who survived, you know, some went underground and some their DNA, you know, just kind of, but they're like warriors, and they had to protect themselves. And
Mad
I was like,
Max.
yeah, and I say, man, how close we are to a scenario like that. We have terrorists who have bombs, and they're not accountable to any nation now. How do you fight them? And we're just probably in more danger of nuclear war than we ever have been, even in the 60s when the Soviet Union was doing its thing, and we just have to have hope.
Well, I think that's the element that comes
Attitude.
back to caregiving, is attitude and gratitude.
Yeah.
That things can be worse.
An
Um,
attitude of gratitude.
an
Yeah.
attitude of gratitude,
Hmm.
and it's not always easy. I mean, yes, there are certainly people like me who, if I needed a nurse for Steve's mom, I could afford to get a nurse for Steve's mom.
Yeah.
We could take taxis. We didn't have to worry about where the next, mortgage payment was coming from,
Mm.
uh, or whether or not I was going to have a job to go back to,
Yeah.
when it was all over, and we knew what all over meant.
Yeah.
You know,
And
and I didn't have to sit and worry what my life was going to be like when my world fell apart. I Anticipatory grief was something that I went through from the time Steve was diagnosed.
yeah.
So we talked about all of these things, and communication, I think, is key in attitude, because if you're keeping all of your anger and all of your frustration and resentment to yourself, that's not going to make for a good attitude. You have to learn a way to communicate and share it, and
Yeah,
whether that's with the person you're caring for, or talking to people like us, you know.
yeah, and that'll rot your bones keeping it internal. That's where cancer comes from.
Sure.
And even if you didn't have the money, somehow you would have made it. You would have made it happen. We went through a depression during the 30s, and
Absolutely.
some
Yeah.
of the stories of how people survived and they just came together, that's how it could be again. And the fact that you're okay now. You've managed to survive, and now you're
I've
living
managed.
your golden years. You have a boyfriend, and this isn't a life sentence. The Bible says this too will pass. Not everything
Yeah.
is permanent. You can get this depression based attitude. Oh my gosh, this is never going away. That's why people kill themselves, because they don't see hope. They don't
They
see a
don't
way out.
they
You
don't
know,
see another way out. That's the only
but
way
there's
out.
always there's always a way out. During the depression, that cartoon character Annie, the sun will come up tomorrow. And it's a great message, and it helped. you know Warner Brothers made their comeback during the depression, just making feel good movies to make people
Yeah,
forget
of
about their
course.
troubles. And you know what, they felt better the next day. And yeah, they had to go through it again, but it's all about attitude, isn't it?
It's all about attitude.
Yeah. Well, listen, that's a good place to take a break. So don't go away, and we will talk more about whatever it is we're going to talk about next. So we will be right back. Don't go away.
One Arm, One Leg, 100 Words, Overcoming Unbelievable Hardships is about Charlene, a stroke survivor. Back in 1996, Charlene was a healthy, normal, very active 52-year-old woman whose amazing talents resemble that of both a Martha Stewart and a Wonder Woman. But all that changed when she suffered a massive stroke that left her severely speech impaired and paralyzed on the right side. Who am I? My name is David. I've had the privilege of being Charlene's husband since 1975. We had a wonderful, fairy tale, storybook-like courtship that culminated in our marriage a year later. Charlene had just come out of a marriage where after 10 years, she received 2 black eyes and a broken nose by her former husband when he came home high on speed. Charlene believed in no second chances of any kind for abuse, so she left. Finding herself all alone in the world with her 5 and 10-year-old daughters, Cynthia Lorraine and Deborah Lynn, she started raising them by herself for the next 2 years. Then fate brought us all together. After falling in love with Charlene, Cindy, and Debbie, our love then produced Rebecca Elizabeth. We had a wonderful, normal life for the next 20 years. But today, things are very different for everyone. One arm, one leg, 100 words, overcoming unbelievable hardships is the amazing story of a woman's fight to survive all that life had thrown her way. Everyone who knows Charlene is thoroughly amazed at how she lives day by day, month by month, year by year, and with a smile on her face and hope in her heart that everything is going to be okay. Her faith in God is her foundation in this hope, that everything happens for a reason, and what doesn't kill her will make her stronger. She inspires everyone who meets her. Her accomplishments since her stroke are very impressive, often making us normal people look like whiners and complainers. So pick up your copy of One Arm, One Leg, 100 Words, Overcoming Unbelievable Hardships today. You won't be disappointed. Just hear what best-selling author Lynn Barrington has to say about it. If you think you have it bad, read this book. This is a beautiful, genuine story told from the heart. It's inspiring and easy to read. When you finish this book, you'll be able to look at your concerns in a new light. How about the reaction of 9-time Grammy and Dove Award recipient, the godfather of contemporary gospel Christian music, Andre Crouch? Charlene just won't let the promises of God go, and she has not let her circumstances get in the way of her faith. She's not just a survivor, she's more than a conqueror, as the Bible states. You'll be encouraged by her testimony, regardless of what you're going through. Available everywhere, but if you purchase your copy directly from the author's website, onearmonleg100words.com, Charlene and David will personally autograph your copy. Enjoy!
We're back with Adrienne Gruberg and me, Dave Nassani. And we're talking about attitude and just things that are on caregivers' minds. I'm looking at my Dave the Caregiver's Caregiver Facebook site, and one of the posts I put is leave something positive, and another thing I put things like tell what you love about caregiving and tell what you hate about caregiving. And that really promotes a lot of interaction because, if they're going to complain and tell me what they hate, I want them to also tell me what they love. And some of the comments are just really amazing. Say something about that, Adrienne. Well, I want to pull one up while you're talking.
Oh, a lot of people will have a lot of negative things to say about it. Not necessarily about the person they're taking care of, but about the circumstances that they're in. Something that I thought about talking about in terms of attitude was the attitude of the other people in your family and your relationship with them. And I mean, if you're the only one that's doing anything and you've got 3 or 4 brothers and sisters and you're the only one dealing with mom, that might not sit very well with you. It's not an easy thing to live with.
Family is complicated, isn't it?
Family is very complicated. I mean, you have daughters, and do they help you?
Not as much as they should. They don't come by as much as they should, but that's the complaint of every mother, let alone, caregiving.
Of course.
But I found it. It's so here's someone who says it's all about a year behind me now. So she's a very fortunate person. We should all be that fortunate. I have looked back to find some joy. The only joy is that the job is done. So that's her joy. The worst for her was when the fear and anxiety for her was so intense. We did not sleep for about 2.5 weeks. Well, she's lucky that it was
That's
only
nothing.
2.5 weeks. So you can always find somebody who's
Yeah,
in worse
two and a
shape.
half weeks. Bless her heart. Yeah.
But that was the end of the world for her.
Mm-hmm.
Then the doctor prescribed anti-anxiety drugs for her that helped the whole family so much. Dementia is a very cruel and ugly disease. Well,
Yes, it is.
yes, it is. Try dealing with it for like 20 years. Here's another one. The worst part is seeing my strong, independent mom losing her memory and becoming more childish and dependent daily. Yeah, that's pretty bad. I'm so thankful I'm able to live with her and take care of her. Great attitude. The
Mm-hmm.
best part is the stories she tells me of her childhood and being here with her while she still knows who I am. Dementia is so cruel. See, talk about making lemonade out of lemons.
That's that's
It's
that's those are the little gems that you look for.
yeah,
There are those moments that are even in a case where someone does not recognize you, a parent.
yeah,
Um, very often they a person with dementia will have mellowed
yeah,
and will be more loving and much nicer. They may not know who you are,
yeah,
but you can have a really pleasant relationship with them that you were never able to have before. So
absolutely.
you can give with an open heart because there's warmth there that wasn't there before. I'm very
Yeah,
fortunate I never had to deal with a parent with that. Um, but my father's sisters,
yeah,
they lived into their mid-90s, but they both had severe dementia when they passed.
yeah. My mother had dementia, but she was one of those sweet ones. Everybody loved her
Mhm.
down there, and they took great care of her. They went out of their way to do things for her. And some of them are kind of nasty, and the staff avoids them and this and that, but you can even find good in that. At the end of the day, I think every caregiver should have a time where they say, okay, this is the time that I've set it for this day. I'm going to list all the things that I'm
Yep.
thankful for and that went well, because I'm going to feel better dwelling on that than on the other stuff. And even if it's 1% good and 99% bad, it works.
But I think it's very valuable to put the things that are making you upset down as well as the things that you're grateful for, because it
And why is that?
gives you an outlet for it.
Like a venting.
You can vent. It's my philosophy that the page listens. So while you're writing or talking, dictating into a
Yeah,
machine, telling your story, uh, getting it out and not letting it fester. Okay, these are
yeah.
the things that really bugged me today. If you've seen, are you familiar with The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron?
I don't think so.
Well, she suggests that everyone start their day by writing out what's bothering them. Get
And you
rid of
say
it
that,
at the
and you say the
beginning of the
page
day.
listens.
I say the page listens because I found as I wrote things down, I didn't have to be talking
Metaphorically.
to a therapist. I didn't have to be talking to a therapist
Yeah.
or a friend. I had somebody to talk to whenever I wanted to if I put it down on the
Mm,
page. I wasn't looking for feedback.
yeah.
I just needed I didn't want to sit and complain about the things that were bothering me or the things that I
Yeah.
was scared of because it wasn't always the right time to discuss those things. But
Yeah.
yeah, when those things needed to be talked about, you find the right time to do that too.
Yeah.
That's not easy, but getting rid of the bad stuff in your head by putting it down someplace makes it much easier for you let the good stuff in.
Yeah. And if you want to post it on our Facebook page, quite literally, that page does listen, and they even answer back.
Absolutely.
Here's another one. For my dad, the best was being his quote unquote eyes and helping him learn his Bible chapters. Yes, I said chapters. He could quote entire chapters of the Bible verbatim.
Wow.
When he did preach, which became rare due to a failing heart, he just held his Bible while he gave his sermon text, while others read along trying to catch him in a mistake. Says they never did. Worst is my oldest brother, after the death of my dad, took everything my mom and my other brother and I were to inherit. Wow. He left her with nothing but the clothes on her back and has not called her or contacted her since 2011. She is heartbroken. Now I'm dealing with providing for her physical needs without the provision that my dad had set in place for her. Boy, talk about, having a right to be upset, but that doesn't give you the right to ruin your life by having the bad attitude. Yeah, bad things happen to everybody. Bad thing happened to my wife, but she decided that she's not going to let that define who she is. She decided
life was worth living.
Yeah, yeah. And this guy, maybe 99% of people are tempted to let that just make him a crabby, old,
Exactly.
crotchety, negative person, and it could do that. I heard someone say life can make you either bitter or, if you change your attitude, better, And so he can at least look back on the days that he was there. What advice would you give this guy, by the way? Because sometimes I just don't know what to tell these people except I am so sorry.
Well, it's the only way to move on in a case like that really is just to let it go. It sounds like there's no way of mending these fences.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know if he can be jailed
stuff.
for that.
Well, we don't know all the legal circumstances. We don't know what the will was. I don't understand how somebody can do the things that he's talking about, but people do strange and ugly things. And when, I mean, it's the serenity prayer, really. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and the courage to change the things I can. So you have to look back and forth and back and forth. What can I do? Is this something I can do something about, or is this something that I really need to let go of? And then that's the wisdom to know the difference. So that prayer comes in so handy. It's unbelievable. It's
Yeah. And the story even gets worse because I said, how sad, any legal recourse? And he said, well, mom has attorneys who specialize in such cases. To begin with, he brought them into his home and used undue influence, his words, one of the terms used in her case. He also controlled them by keeping them shut in and keeping me and others away by threatening to shoot me. I mean, this is a really nice guy. Since he had 2 prior arrests for domestic abuse, I took the threat seriously. In the end, after Dad had been in the hospital for 2 months, the social worker and the hospital called the police, who went in and took my mother out of the house. Her bedroom door had boards nailed over it to keep her inside. Can you imagine? You think you got it bad? Listen to this. The mattress she was on had to be burned because she couldn't get out to go to the bathroom. She had not been given medications or bathed in 3 weeks. They had gone on a weekend trip and left her with a gallon of water and a box of Pop-Tarts. It's obvious he was just biding his time until they were gone.
right.
After the social worker called me, I went and got them. So, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that people vent to me, the caregiver's caregiver.
As venting is very good.
sometimes it's just a no-win situation, and maybe in worst case scenarios, you'll get your reward in the next life, you know, but you have to survive, and you have to, be the person you can be. I mean, look at the human history. If people have survived the worst of times, it's like it was the worst of times, it was the best of times. There are ways that you can survive, and there are amazing. You just Google amazing life stories, and you hear how people escaped from the Nazi prisoner of war camps,
Yep.
and they have a good life today. So, it's all about your attitude, and I think faith in God, because we need faith in something higher than us, whatever that higher power is.
Whatever the higher power is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we're not alone here on Earth. We're not just a bunch of ants skirmishing around because someone's smashing you. But that's just my opinion, but I think it's a good opinion. You probably hear a lot of stuff too on your sites. What are some of the stories that have caught you by surprise and
Well, I heard about a woman. I didn't hear about. I read her story. She was in the Philippines and read read something from a gentleman who was looking to get married to a Philippine lady, an American who wanted to get married, and she found out a little bit more about him because that's what she was looking for. Uh, she wasn't looking just for someone to take care of her. She was looking for a partner and a full life. And she found a gentleman who'd had a stroke. And so she went into the relationship knowing that she was going to be a caregiver of sorts, not knowing to what degree. And it's worsened over time. But so has his mental state. And now he's become physically abusive. So he uses his cane and his wheelchair against her. And she's someone now who's physically abused. She, there's no money in the bank in her name. He's made sure that she feels totally trapped and feels that she has no place to go, so she's just stuck and has to take care of him. And they're living in the Philippines, so it's it's not just an American thing. It is in other countries. I mean, on my site we've got every English speaking country has somebody who uses the site. A lot of people in South Africa, plenty of Canadians and the Brits who are carers, not caregivers, they're carers. And the person they care for is the caree. So
well, that's good.
It's interesting to see the difference in problems from one country to another, because some countries will compensate caregivers. Or give them certain benefits, respite benefits, and they have different things that they're anxious about and that they're fearful of. And I think that also is one of the things that will determine your attitude, is how scared you are and where you think you're going and what you think you're doing. The fear turns to a bad attitude.
Yeah. I want to read more because I think people need to get a flavor of the different. There's so many different kinds. I mean, there's hundreds or thousands or millions of different stories.
Of course.
I've been a caregiver for about 10 years, not counting the 5 years I took care of my husband before he passed away. I'm heartbroken every time I lose a client. So this is a paid caregiver talking. And a lot of people are under the mistaken assumption that paid caregivers are not emotionally connected to their clients, and that's just not true. Many times they
Right.
come home and they're just, go into depression because
Right.
some say they're too connected to them. Anyway, she goes, I'm heartbroken every time I lose a client. So she's lost more than one, obviously.
Mm.
And they become like my family, and it's just an eye opener. Um, uh, eye opener, and then it says juicy their lives. I'm sorry, she was dictating. An
Yeah.
eye opener, how their lives goes from being so lively to melting away. I love to take care of the elderly because I love their stories and what
Mm-hmm.
they've been through. And that is such uh, a joy of caregiving for elderly that people just don't even go there. They don't even realize there's a treasure chest full of
It's
diamonds. You just
rich.
open it up. Yeah.
It's rich. It's rich for it's rich for children, for grandchildren, for brothers, sisters, relatives, because I know my brother, we could be like, two peas in a pod, but he
Yeah.
still goes off to do his thing, and
Yeah.
he's got great stories.
Yeah,
So
and to bring children into the home, they love to
they
tell their stories to
love.
children.
Yep.
And many people bring children into nursing homes and senior care centers, and they just come alive, But they're just sitting there doing this, and then the kids come in and
Well, uh-huh.
oh, and smiles
Fresh
come on
blood.
their
Yeah.
faces, and they're touching, and I don't know why more people don't do that. Anyway, he says, I love to take care of the elderly because of stories and what they've been through, and how much they have done. I only wish that I had the chance to take care of my own mother who
Ah.
passed who passed away at an early age. I put
Mm,
all my heart and soul into these people. Some of them appreciate it, some of them don't.
right.
but I but
That's
I
that's one of the things that paid caregivers really have a
yeah.
problem with, is when their heart's really in it and the other person is just impossible.
I know. Sometimes my mother doesn't like this person that we paid. Oh, I don't like her
Yes.
because, I like that other one better. And, I says, Mom, she's sweet, no,
Right.
give me that other one, so go figure. Uh, so, so here, because she couldn't take care of her mother, it's like she's treating these like they were her mother. She puts all her
Yes.
heart and soul into these people. Some of them appreciate it, some of them don't. I know that I'm doing what God wants me to, and I am where I'm supposed to be. I pray every day and go to church with my client. Just pray that when I get old, I will have a loving caregiver also.
That's
You
wonderful.
know, the karma thing. Mm.
The karma thing. Yep.
The bad karma too for those who are nailing
Oh,
boards to the mother's wall. I like to see them when they get old, and who is in charge of them.
it's like the portrait of Dorian Gray. You hope, that the person is really getting ugly.
Yeah,
Ugh. I I don't understand how people can do that, but I I accept the fact that they do,
yeah.
I can't change it.
Here's another one. Looking after my mom in her final weeks as she deteriorated and feeling so helpless. If I could give her my own organs to save her, I would have. Her cancer was incurable and she sadly passed away 4 weeks ago.
Mm.
You know, there's just I think just reading these stories, if you're a caregiver and you had a rough day, come on my site, come on Adrienne's site, and
Right.
just read what some of your peers are going through. And if your heart isn't broken or you don't feel like stopping what you're doing and praying for them because they're going through 100 times worse of what you're going through, and all of a sudden, things don't look too bad after all, do they?
Well,
Here's another here's another one. The worst time was the final hours before my sister died because she was unresponsive, but I know she knew that I was there with her. I held her hand the entire time. Some of this just chokes me up. so
Mm-hmm.
she would know that she wasn't alone. The hearing is the last to go, so I spoke softly to her off and
Mm-hmm.
on, telling her how much she was loved, what an awesome sister that she had always been, and that she was my hero and always has been. And if she got to heaven before me, she better be waiting by the gate when I get there. The last thing I told her was that she had fought for a long, hard battle.
Mm-hmm.
I would miss her and that I was going to be alone. I was going to be all right. I told her it was okay for her to rest and that we all were there with her. I
Mm-hmm.
kissed her and told her I love you. She passed away about 30 seconds later. I was sad that I would not see her again until I got to heaven, but I rejoiced that she was in the presence of our Heavenly Father. My sister was no longer in pain,
Mm-hmm.
and she had been made whole again. I My best time, I guess that was the bad time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
My best time was each and every day that I spent with her, the 8.5 months that I took care of her. There was nothing left unsaid. She was never alone. I had the honor of taking care of her and being her voice when she was unable to speak to herself for herself. Precious memories were made. I have no regrets for 1 second of being with her, and I thank God for his mercy in carrying me through this very hard time in my life. And how that contrasts so much with the person who says, "Oh, they messed all over the rug and I had to clean it up and this and that." You know, there are rich, precious times that they can be having. And it's like childbirth, right? They tell me, I don't know, but they tell me that when you're having a baby, man, you're just, you want to slug somebody. The pain is tremendous, and you just want to die. And then when the baby is out, all the pain
You
is gone, or at
forget
least you
it
forget about it, and
till
this wonderful bundle of joy. And that's kind of how caregiving is, isn't it?
yeah. I- it's it's all a matter of perspective. It's something that I was doing for myself at the same time that I was doing it for Steve.
Mm,
I know that I'm still here and he's someplace else, but
mhm. Yeah.
as I said before, it was the thing about communication because we did have each other throughout it. No matter whether it was a good day or a bad day, whatever kind of news we got, we were there for each
Yeah.
other. Um, and you, in the end, um, you don't really sit back and think about the bad times. You think about the good times. And it's
Yeah.
too bad that you can't remember the good times well before it's too late. Talk
Well,
about the good
it's like
times.
this person. The only thing she wrote is no best times. Bad, bad, bad.
Mm,
Really? Maybe. Maybe. We don't know. We can't judge.
we don't know. We don't. No, we don't.
Yeah.
We don't know the whole story. There's just a comment. That's hard.
All right. Well, Adrienne, this is a good time to take a break so we can go ball in our tissue. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Anytime we suffer loss, we grieve. And a lot of people don't realize what even the grief process is. But it could be 5 to 7 steps ranging from denial, I don't believe this is happening, anger, oh my gosh, I'm so upset this is happening, to a form of bargaining, how can I get out of this, to depression, which is a very serious thing because that often leads to suicide. And then finally, after you realize you have no more control over your situation and you're totally okay with the new normal that it brings, that wonderful, wonderful place called acceptance.
Being a caregiver takes a special person with passion and compassion. But even you can become a little burned out from time to time. The Caregiver's Caregiver radio show was developed to help you overcome obstacles, adversity, and burnout, as well as just having a place to rest, relax, and recharge your batteries. We've all been there, and you're not alone. Now, you can take the Caregiver's Caregiver with you. Get the top 25 radio shows in convenient form that plugs right into your USB car stereo or computer. Learn the techniques, tips, and encouragement we all need to better handle the day-to-day challenges. For around $1 per show, just $29.77, get the credit card-sized USB card to have with you anytime you need a caregiver's pick-me-up. Just go to DaveTheCaregiversCaregiver.com and order yours today. Go to DaveTheCaregiversCaregiver.com now. Consider it an investment in you, and ultimately, an investment in them.
So let's just tell people where, how they can get a hold of you and where, our site if they feel like they want to vent, not only on a page, but maybe, tell us. That's really healthy. I would encourage people, don't just tell us the bad. Tell us the good and the bad. Or as they say, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't know. Do we want the ugly? If you have to tell the ugly, tell the ugly. But how can they get a hold of you and your sites? And you have a new community page now. Maybe you
Yeah.
want to do that. There's
Well,
more
it's
privacy, right?
well, yeah, there's more privacy on in what Facebook calls a group, what we're calling a community. I think you and I are we really know the importance of community and a sense of
Yes.
community in all this, because
Yeah.
it doesn't matter where these people are, the internet's brought us all together. So
Yeah.
we can share the good and we can share the bad.
Yeah.
And when you read through, you don't even have to go someplace and contribute until you're ready. You could just go to a page and read what other people are going through, or read articles and get advice.
Yeah.
There's so much.
I wasn't planning on crying today, but
No,
the caregiver came out of me as I'm just taking to heart what this woman is saying. It's just hard to go through some of these.
I read things very often like,
yeah, we thought we've heard it all, Yeah.
and everybody's got a different story. No two stories are the same.
No, absolutely not.
So if people want to contact me, it's Adrienne, ADRIENNE, at thecaregiverspace.org, and the site's thecaregiverspace.org. And then we've got a Facebook page, The Caregiver Space, and I think when you're on that page, you can say you want to sign up for the community, and it'll take you to the community page to ask if you can join.
All right, and this would be a good show to post on your big page,
Absolutely.
Facebook. And are you able to post things on your website, like videos like this show, or is it hard?
Right now we're making some changes to that, so I don't know where we'll be left. We may assign certain things to the community and certain things to our site because it's easier one place than the other.
Okay.
Or drive people to the site to see something.
Okay.
It varies.
Great. Well, I'll post it to your community page. I'll also post it to my page, DaveTheCaregiversCaregiver.com. And thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. You are just wonderful, and I'm sorry you live in New York, in Manhattan, near Trump Tower.
I don't live near Trump Tower. I was trying to get around it. That's all.
Well, yeah, Manhattan's in the center of everything, isn't it?
See, the best thing for me to do would have been to get on the subway and walk a few blocks.
Is it safe?
Of course. No, of course it is. But I was going to a very tough neighborhood to get to. So
So that's not
as
safe.
though anything was. It's not a tough neighborhood. It's hard to get to.
I see. Yeah, so when you take the subway, then you get to hear, different groups serenade you, a doo-wop, and some of the best groups I've ever heard have been on the New York subway and on the Staten Island ferry.
Yep, and I respect the people who actually sing or perform or do something and don't just give you a sob story.
Yeah, it's the American way.
Yeah. Yeah, sing for your supper.
Well, thank you again. Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver Radio Show. Make sure you tune in every Wednesday at noon Pacific Time and anytime afterwards on podcast to catch more of Dave and his tips to caregivers on avoiding burnout and surviving the grief process right here on the Worldwide Block Talk Radio Network. Goodbye.